Oop, oop. All right. Hello, Huskies. My name is Jacob Berg, and I am the chair of this year's Board of Elections. Down here up front, we have the rest of the Board of Elections members: Senator Maeve Wallace, Vice President James Reginald Holmes III, Chairperson of the Organizational Oversight Committee, James McHugh, and Chairperson of the Campus Life and Greek Affairs Committee, Curtis Barla. Can we give him a round of applause? So on behalf of myself and the rest of the board, I would like to thank you all for coming out to the 2022 Student Government Association Executive Candidate Debates. So unfortunately, due to some scheduling conflicts and some illness, it's not really going to be a debate. It's going to be more so a question and answer session. However, it's going to be a very informative one, and you guys will get a really good opportunity to see what each of these candidates are really about. Yeah, so the debates will be broken up. Well, originally it was going to be broken up, but we're probably just going to power through. No intermission. The structure is we're going to start with student trustee candidate Tim Moore, then move to the vice presidential candidate Kaylin Lee, and then to our presidential candidate that is here, Raif Majid. And we're going to start and just do a question and answer session. Following the structured questions, there are QR codes up here on the podiums as well as around the seats. You guys can submit questions and we will filter through them. And then again, like I said, following our structured questions, we'll go ahead and open that up to you guys to ask any questions you guys see fit. Let's see. Yeah, so without further ado, I present you all the candidate for student trustee, Tim Moore.
Okay, is everyone able to hear me properly? All right, sounds good. So hello, as said before, my name is Tim Moore. I'm a current sophomore, majoring in meteorology, seeking a minor in geography as well as a GIS certificate, and I am running for your upcoming student trustee. I'm currently the chair of the Environmental Affairs Committee in the Student Government Association, as well as a member of the Atmospheric Science Committee, maintaining a 3.2 GPA. This experience has led me to feel adequately prepared to understand issues and concerns that some may have while sticking to the role of trustee, which is to maintain authority in terms of support for the university's mission and contribute to the enhancement of our state and nation. Thank you.
Okay. Your first question is, what do you see as the most important role of the student trustee?
Yeah, one of the main things that the student trustee provides is being the main gap or the bridge chain link between the students and the university at the highest level, while also maintaining communication at all levels.
Given that you be elected, would you be sitting on the highest governing body of the university? What is the number one issue that you would advocate for as a student trustee?
Yeah, definitely one of the number one things that I would prioritize as student trustee is student involvement on campus, as I believe that many students, they not only do not know about all the organizations that we have on campus, but what they have to offer, not only for the collegiate experience, but in the future and helping build their life resume.
Thank you. So, given that you mentioned some of your organizational experiences, such as SGA and the others, how do you feel that these experiences or event plannings or things such as that, how has that prepared you for this role?
Yeah, well, being the chair of the Environmental Affairs Committee, it does require some initiative and a lot of curiosity. And by curiosity, I mean going out and seeking people's opinions, rather that be for an event or any topics that the university might be covering, and just to understand them at their point of view and at their level.
Thank you.
What is one way you would plan to gather feedback from the student body in order to keep yourself informed on how students feel about the issues brought upon the Board of Trustees?
Right. So one of the things that I believe is being undergone right now or has been done in the past is creating a Facebook group or any type of group for the student trustee so that all students have access to this and they could provide me with concerns or questions that I could bring up to the higher university officials at our meetings.
You've spoken about the Student Government Association's need for increased transparency. How do you plan to collect information from all areas of SGA and distribute to the student body on a regular or monthly basis?
While I can't directly be involved with SGA, but in terms of hearing their concerns and, I'm sorry, but could you please repeat the question?
I'll just rephrase it. So you talk about the SGA needing more transparency and more, communication with the student body. So how would you plan, aside from those Facebook groups, so for like in-person stuff like that, how would you plan to collect that information from the different parts of SGA, the student body, and deliver that to the student trustees?
So yeah, just collecting information. Obviously, you can take minor notes, and like within these conversations that you have with students, you can keep key details in, especially like within like their thought process, and to be able to like bring that up to the board in a way that they will be able to understand it, and that all students like have a good understanding of what is being asked and what is being requested of the students.
Great. What barriers do you see that students face at NIU, and how will you work to advocate for solutions to these barriers?
Yeah, so as mentioned before, one of the barriers that I believe that students have been blocked by is transparency. I do understand that the university sends out emails weekly regarding what is going on at the university or what organizations are having like event-wise. But I do not believe that that is a, excuse me, I do not believe that that is as an adequate method in doing so, because obviously some students will just look at the email, they'll see the notification, but they won't actually click on it. So actually going out and voicing what is going on and setting up, whether that's in the student center or at certain buildings that a lot of students have high traffic areas in, that could help.
SGA has been involved in several conversations about supporting new places on campus and innovating the campus. Would you be in support of raising student fees to kind of help push this conversation along?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that? I wasn't quite able to hear all of that.
The Student Government Association has been involved in conversations over the years to raise student fees in order to continue to support newer and more renovated buildings. So as student trustee, would you support the idea of raising these student fees to possibly renovate and have newer spaces on campus?
Yeah, well, I can't directly have an influence in that, but I definitely do think it is a good idea. Because yes, there are a lot of aspiring organizations and students that want to get involved, but they don't necessarily have the tools to do so. So increasing like that funding in that sense would provide these materials for students to become successful for their orgs.
Great, thank you so much. And so that does conclude our structured questions. We do have a few questions from the audience, so we'll just go ahead and start with those. Right, so one of the main roles of the Board of Trustees is to ensure the stability of the financial situation of NIU. So what are some experiences that you have had to have prepared you for this role?
While I do not have a direct answer to that question, as I have not been directly involved in certain financial situations, I could certainly gain some more information on that and to be able to learn from previous position holders as to their experiences and their opinions on the subject.
Please share a failure you have learned from and tell us how you will use that experience in this role.
You said a failure that I've learned from?
Yes.
Well, just last year, my freshman year, a failure that I could definitely share with you all was actually the failure of two of my classes, which were actually the first two classes that I've ever failed in my life. I've kind of felt like I've been a good student, but with how COVID-19 has affected all students, not only like in Illinois, across the country, and their motivation, it definitely opened my eyes as to like what I need to do on a day-to-day basis to maintain that motivation, and keeping your goals and in the same mindset, keeping that in a regular manner and not getting off track would definitely help me succeed in the future.
I just have a kind of a follow-up for that, just the second part of that. So how would you use that experience within the role of student trustee?
Yeah, so definitely while those classes were going on and occurring, the motivation was not there. However, looking back after it, seeing certain things that I could have looked over, some time that I could have taken out of my day to study this or do this, can relate right back to student trustee. In that case, the extra time and free time that I would have on a day-to-day basis would be strictly dedicated to that rather than pushing it off or saying, this isn't necessarily required right now, I could do it later. No, that will not be included at all. It will be get it done as soon as it is brought to my attention.
Would you be able to name two of the current Board of Trustees members?
Yeah, of course. So right now, it is Athos, Barcema. May I keep going? Is that okay? So we have Athos, Barcema, Butler, I believe, Summer, and Wazowicz, which is the current chair, I believe.
Thank you. And to thank you guys again for those questions from the audience. We'll leave this open for about 2 more minutes, just in case you guys have any last thoughts. Actually, maybe not 2 minutes. Just turn it in really quick. Come on. And just as a special thank you to all of our online viewers for coming out. All right, so it looks like no one else has any more questions, so I do want to thank you again, the candidate for student trustee, Tim Moore.
Thank you.
All right, so moving forward, we will now have the candidate for vice president, Kaylin Lee.
Could you take a moment to tell us a little bit about yourself and your platform?
Awesome. Hello. My name is Kaylin Lee, and I'm a current sophomore here at NIU, and I major in music education. I have previously been an orientation leader here at NIU over the summer and involved in a number of different student organizations such as Penguin Players, the Marching Band. I also am on the committee for the School of Music as well as the College of Visual and Performing Arts Board. There are a few things that I want to focus on in the position of Vice President. It is vital that we improve to embrace diversity and make sure that every voice is heard. Also, student organizations are a very important part of our university. So one of my goals is to obtain, retain, and maintain members of all of the different student organizations we have here on campus. With the incorporation of these things into our campus, I believe we can improve NIU in many different aspects. Thank you.
Thank you so much. The vice president currently oversees much of the recognition process for student organizations here on campus. Considering the historical backlog of recognition process that requires sometimes months to receive recognition, what is a way you hope to streamline this process?
May I please repeat the question?
Sure. So to simplify, the process usually takes a lot longer to recognize an organization, and we are wondering what is a way you would think to streamline the process, make it a little faster.
Yeah, so I hope to be in direct contact with many of these student organizations, and one of those ways is really starting off from the beginning of the school year, getting involved, making sure that we host events where the different student organizations here on campus can feel that they can reach out and contact me at any point in time. Additionally, I hope that we can create something like a virtual contact line, so if they do have any questions or concerns, things like that, or do want to start a new student organization, they are able to fill out this form online and submit it where I can directly see this form.
Sweet. What are some ways that you plan to help student organizations that are struggling in recruitment or in hosting events?
Great question. So, as I mentioned previously, one of the things in my platform is to obtain, retain, and maintain members in different student organizations. So one of the ways is obtaining. I think it is so important each year to get out, get involved, and make different student organizations here known, and one of those being the involvement fair. So I think it is vital that we continue to host 2 involvement fairs, bare minimum, one in the first semester and one in second semester, so that way students can continue to get involved and see the different student organizations here on campus. Retaining members in different student organizations. We want them to continue to stay in these student organizations throughout all 4 years of college, or however long it takes them to complete college. We really want them to stay, so one of those things could be helping them to find scholarships, whether or not that is outside scholarships or within SGA, helping them get connected so that there is almost an incentive for them to stay in these organizations. And the last thing is maintaining. So maintaining their values and goals of the different student organizations here on campus. So make them better and make sure that they are taken care of.
Great answer. So given that you have never held a position within the Student Government Association, why should Huskies be confident to put you in one of the highest offices of this organization?
That is a great question. So, although I have not held a position in our Student Government Association here at NIU, I have held other leadership positions, and one of these main positions that I have on campus is I am a music director here for Penguin Players. I take each week and I help students with disability. If you don't know what Penguin Players is, it's a group of students, adults with disabilities, and so with that it requires extra time and extra care to plan and maintain our values in Penguin Players. And I am additionally, as I mentioned previously, on the School of Music Advisory Board as well as the College of Visual and Performing Arts Board. And so there we have plenty of meetings where we have to schedule things. So I think answering your question, that with some of those leadership opportunities and experiences, I am able to reach out and advocate for the student body as a whole, even though I have not held a position in Student Government Association.
Thank you. Diversity is important for students. How will you live out that value in this position?
That is a great question. And one of those ways, I think, being we saw it last night at the Celebrating Culture event here in the Home Student Center. I really want to make sure that the Celebrating Culture event is continued throughout my time as vice president, if to be elected. I think we should make it an annual event where we are celebrating the different cultures we see here on campus. So one of those ways in celebrating the different cultures would be to host the Celebrating Culture Night each year, as well as have tabling events for different cultural organizations here at NIU.
Thank you. The U.S. midterm elections are approaching. During the last election season, we saw a strong divide amongst our students, with tensions high during the pandemic. With students back on campus, we're sure to see more evidence of passions running strong. How will you value freedom of expression while working to unite the student body?
May you please repeat the question?
So, the simple form, how do you plan to balance freedom of expression with focus on unity amongst the student body?
Well, freedom of expression is very important. We want to make sure that we are respecting everyone and their values, and we want to make sure that we are not crossing any boundaries. So by that way, I think having conversations and making sure we are having open conversations is one of the ways to do so. Talking about the things that are difficult to be talked about, I think, is one step in the right direction to talking about the freedom of expression and things like that.
Thank you so much. What is one unique strength you can bring to the Student Government Association?
So one of my biggest strengths that I pride myself on is I am great at outreach, and I really love talking. I think that something that would be very important for Student Government Association is getting those connections and having that outreach to students to join different organizations, come get involved in Student Government Association. And I think that by me being able to have a conversation with anyone and having that good outreach, that is a huge asset that I bring to the table.
One of the major jobs of the Student Government Vice President is basically acting as an advisor to not just SGA, but organizations across the board. In regards to constitutions and bylaws, what experience do you have with that, or maybe even in starting organizations?
Can you rephrase the question, please?
Yes. What experience do you have in your background in regards to student government constitutions and bylaws, or even in the local level of organizations, bylaws, or constitutions?
So looking at the Constitution that I have in front of me, I see obviously the roles of the Vice President, so acting on behalf of the President, hold and preside over at least one organizational assembly each academic year, things like that. So is that what you're pertaining to?
I'm saying more in the sense of approving organizations and their bylaws, or giving advice about how to write bylaws. Do you have any experience in that regard?
I do not have any experience in coming up with bylaws and writing them. However, I do have experience in having the deciding factor and having that sense of communication with other people to come up with the laws and things like that. I guess that's my experience.
Well, that's the end of our structured questions. So again, similar with the student trustee, we'll open that up for audience questions. So we currently have one question. If you guys just want to wrap it up and keep submitting some, we'll get to those as well. But this one is, a large portion of Black students do not feel welcome on campus. Besides hosting cultural events, how will you help support these students and give them a reason to stay at NIU?
Yeah, that is a great question, so thank you for asking that. I think one of those ways is, I know you said outside of cultural events, but I really think that one of the ways students are getting involved and hopefully feeling like they have a voice and things like that. I know we had the Black Lives Matter painting over on Castle Drive, I believe is where it's at, and there was a large population of students that came out, and that was after an incident at the building, I'm sure we're aware of. But there, I think that is one of the ways to get students talking and to feel like they are being supported.
Sweet, thank you.
So this position does require you to meet and connect with people from all sorts of different schools within the university. Can you talk a little bit about experiences or mentors that you've found outside of your own college or department?
Yeah, thank you for asking that question. So one of the things is definitely me getting involved in different organizations, and one of the organizations, as I've stated previously, is Penguin Players. There we have many students getting involved who are from different colleges. Additionally, just when I go out and talk to people, asking about them, how their college is, I'll frequently visit different buildings, connect with students and things like that, and there I will learn more about them and have that outreach and that different connection for students outside of the College of Visual and Performing Arts.
It seems as though organization fairs are not having the expected turnout. How else will you invigorate our student life and encourage engagement?
So, if student involvement fairs are not getting the turnout, I really hope to have a connection with the students and to be transparent with everyone here on campus. And one of those ways, I believe, to improve campus and start making connections is to have a virtual suggestion box so their students can suggest things, maybe getting involved. I know Campus Activity Board hosts movie nights frequently and things like that. And I think getting out there, student government getting out there and interacting with students and just talking to them is one of the ways to see where our students lie at and see some of the things that they might be interested in getting involved at so that we can create an event where students are turning out and really getting involved on campus.
In addition to supporting student orgs, the vice president supports the vision of the president. How will you work to foster a good working relationship with the president so you can be effective?
Yeah, so I hope to be in constant communication with the president when elected. And I think that having that sense of communication and being very open with one another is one way to do so. I hope to have weekly meetings or bi-weekly meetings with the president so that way we can have the same vision for NIU and improving it and really helping our student population and NIU as a whole.
Thank you.
We are getting a bunch of questions from the audience, and I think that's absolutely great, so thank you all for your participation. We are going to limit this to about 5 more minutes just out of respect for our candidate so she's not standing up there in the hot light for, forever. So Jimmy's going to go ahead and ask the next question.
What is the single most important goal you have for being a vice president?
Can you repeat it one more time, please?
Yes. What is the single most important goal you have for vice president?
That is a great question, and that is a very difficult question to ask. I think that the most important thing is our students. Without our students, we don't really have a campus, we don't have any involvement and things like that. So I think making sure that our students' voices feel that they are being heard and that they do have a voice and a say here at NIU, that is the most important thing here as vice president.
All right. What specifically would you do differently from the current executive branch and more specifically the current vice president? I know it's a little intimidating because he's right here, but be 100% honest.
Well, as I previously stated, I think having those goals of the specifically student organizations for maintaining, obtaining, and retaining, I have centered in what I want to do personally for the student organization goals. Additionally, I've stated I think having a virtual suggestion box where students can send in concerns and we can have transparency within SGA and at NIU is something that I would like to do differently. That's all.
Sweet. Thank you so much. And then we'll just do one final one for you.
Please list your 3 biggest strengths that will aid you in the vice president position.
I think talking, honestly, as crazy as it sounds, I really do think talking is very important. That outreach aspect, that definitely is a huge strength. Empathy is another strength that I have. I'm able to connect with students, really understand where they are coming from, where their concerns might be at. And I am also very good at listening to the concerns that students have. Not just listening, but making sure that these concerns are being met and addressed and making sure that the students are getting adequate help for these concerns.
All right, thank you again, and can we just get a round of applause for her? Yeah, if you want, you can go ahead and give a closing statement.
Okay. Bridging the Gap ticket encompasses what Montez and I believe are the key points in making NIU more inclusive. We are looking to be the voice for all of the students who attend NIU, not just those who live in campus housing. Whether or not you are a part of Greek life, robotics club, athletics, or not involved in anything at NIU, your voice matters. I want to bring a new perspective to NIU SGA and close the gap between the lack of communication that many students have experienced. Bridging the Gap vows to make transparency amongst students a top priority. If you wish to make NIU's vision clearer, I encourage you to vote Montez for Prez and Lee for VP. Thank you.
All right, just as a preface, so Honor Morgan, who is the candidate for treasurer, is here tonight. She did indicate that this is very important. That's why she came out. Unfortunately, she is not feeling so well, and she can't really carry a conversation. But I do want to inform everyone watching the live stream that she is here just to show her support, that obviously this matters for her. Just as a final part, we will now welcome Raif Majid to the podium where he can give his introduction, and then we will start with questions. Let's give a round of applause.
Thank you for the introduction. Good evening, everyone. As mentioned, my name is Raif Majid, and I'm humbled to stand before you all today as candidate for president of your Student Government Association here at NIU. Throughout my time at NIU, I've had the privilege of serving numerous different organizations on campus and working towards building a better community for all. Not only have I worked on issues at NIU, I've also helped with issues within the local DeKalb community. With all these experiences, I've learned what it takes to effectively lead and bring around change. At this point in time, our university and the world around us is going through a pivotal moment, a moment that has the potential to reshape our future for years to come. In order to capitalize on this moment, it is vital that we elect leaders that have the capability of leading this institution in the right direction. And that is why I am running to be your student government president. Also, I would like to thank the Board of Elections for putting this together, and I was looking forward to having a conversation with my opponent, Montez, but hopefully we can figure out a different time for that. Thank you all.
All right, so I will start the questions off here. On your Instagram post, as well as many conversations among the community, transparency is a big topic of concern. So how do you plan to collect information from all areas of Student Government Association and distribute the student body?
Thank you. Yeah, transparency is a big issue that we've honed in on over the last couple of years, and there's a lot of work that we can still do to improve that in terms of student government. One of the big things that we can do is expose ourselves to the student body far more than we are doing right now. One of the main ways we can do that is to be publicly at events that are put together by big institutions on campus and make sure that the student body is aware that we're there and what we can do for them in order to provide support to them and make sure that they're successful in whatever endeavors that they're taking on.
Thank you. How will you make sure you are still excelling as a student once you've taken on the workload of SGA president?
Thank you for the question. So throughout my time at NIU, like I've said, I've been involved in numerous different organizations, and this is my first time since my freshman year that I'm not actively taking a leadership role currently. Throughout these experiences, I've learned some really key time management skills that have allowed me to excel as a student while taking on these leadership roles, and I feel that this position will be no different than the ones that I've done before.
Could you talk about what external factors influenced you to run in this election?
Yeah, so outside of my own drive, I think that one of the big external factors is what I see in the student government today. Over the last year, our student government has not been filled to its fullest capacity, and I think it's really holding student government back from reaching its fullest potential. That alone by itself has really driven me to run for this position and allow to reshape the student government as it currently stands.
Oh, neither you nor Montez has previous involvement in the Student Government Association at NIU. Talk to us about your qualifications to step into the top role in SGA and what makes you a better candidate than your opponent.
I'm very excited for this question. Thank you. So yes, it is true. I do not have any past experience in student government here at NIU. But what I lack at student government here, I do make up for in other spaces. Over the last couple of years, I've had the opportunity to become the first undergraduate student in Northern Illinois' history to serve on the board of directors of a major Greek-lettered organization. On that board, I oversee a staff that is more than double in size the staff of student government. I oversee a budget that is more than 3 times greater than the budget of student government, and that has allowed me to hone in on skills that will that will play a role in me leading student government as it is. So I may not have those titles within student government, but I do have more than enough executive experience over the last few years to lead this organization.
Tell us about any experience you have working with the NIU administration, and how do you plan to foster those connections in order to create a positive working relationship?
Yeah, so I've also served as the executive vice president of the largest governing body on campus aside from student government, and within that role, I've had to work directly with the university administration, specifically the Division of Student Affairs, and I have developed a very, very strong working relationship with those individuals. Over the last year, they have seen a lot of change in personnel as well, and I think that is for the best. And moving forward, I think I'll be able to work really well hand in hand with them in order to move forward the agenda of the university.
All right. So in your own words, what is the purpose of the Student Government Association, and what is the function of the president?
I think the purpose of the Student Government Association is to take in the concerns of the student body and make sure that they are heard when decisions are being made about the way that we're going to move forward as an institution. And I'm sorry, could you repeat the second part of that question for me?
What is the function of the president?
I think the function of the president is to obviously serve as the head of the student government and be there for the student body and be proactive in reaching out and figuring out what the issues are on campus and how we can work with the university administration to improve those issues.
Thank you. Aside from filling all executive positions, what could the current SGA administration improve upon?
I think the current SGA administration could improve upon their exposure to the rest of the student body. As it currently stands, we don't heavily see them involved on on-campus events, and we don't see them being entirely exposed to the student body as much as it possibly could be. I think that exposure could go a long way and could help increase people's ability to see what student government can do for them.
Thank you. How would you react to paid members of the SGA not performing required duties such as office hours, attending meetings, submitting staff reports, etc.?
I think it is a vital part of paid members' jobs and to do those things that you stated. And under my administration, if any of those things were to occur, we would have to seriously reconsider those individuals' spot within the student government and see what we can do to turn that around.
Thank you. What barriers do you see that students face at NIU? How will you work to advocate for solutions to these barriers?
So one of the main barriers that I see students at NIU facing is, quite frankly, they're outside of the classroom experience. Within the modern world, your college degree is the same as a high school degree was about 20 years ago. And what sets NIU apart from its peer institutions is the outside of classroom experience that it used to be able to provide. Obviously, that has changed a lot with COVID and other policies that have taken place over the last few years. And if we can turn that around and give our students the level of engagement that they need in order to be successful after college, I think that would solve one of the biggest barriers that they see today.
If diversity is such a priority, how will you live out that value in this position?
Thank you. Yeah, so as I had stated before, diversity is a main priority of mine. So if you look at NIU as a campus, I think we should applaud our school because if you look at it as compared to its peer institutions, we've done a really, really good job recruiting a diverse class every single year. The fall 21 class, over 65% of the students that came in identified as being minorities. So while we're doing a really good job of taking these students in, what we really need to focus on is a higher retention rate and providing them with the support that they need to be successful while in college. The way we do that is making sure that all of our resource centers are funded entirely and are staffed with talented individuals that can support our students. And making sure that organizations that focus on supporting these students, such as Dream Action, NIU, BMI, and many more, are properly funded and make sure that they have individuals in place that can help their student peers be successful while in college and after college.
So this year, the Student Government Association worked with other students from across the country to increase the Pell Grant. What large-scale initiatives would you like to take on as SGA president?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
So this year, the Student Government Association worked with other student governments and students across the country to increase the Pell Grant, specifically the Double the Pell initiative. So what other large-scale initiatives would you like to take on as president?
Thank you. So as president, one of the main things we want to take a look at in terms of accessibility for our students and making sure that they're doing well. One of the things we're going to talk about is student fees. I know candidate Tim Moore was given a question about student fees. That's one of the main things we want to take a look at and see what we can do in that area in order to make sure that students are far more, education at NIU is far more accessible to students.
Thank you. This year, senators voted to temporarily reduce the 2.5 GPA requirement for student organization leaders, including senators, to 2.0 GPA. Please share your thoughts on this piece of legislation.
I think that for the time being, it is very effective considering the fact that student engagement is at an all-time low, and you see that the number of students that are capable of filling in the required spots aren't as great as they used to be. If we reduce the barrier of entry, that will open up the door for far more students. As student engagement levels increase over the years, we can come back to the table and reevaluate that proposition.
Right, so that is the end of our structured questions. So we will now turn to the audience. If you have not had the chance already, continue to submit those.
So the first one we have is, how can the university provide assistance to the students who live within the area of DeKalb that have been historically unsafe over the past few years?
Thank you. Yeah, so I mean, it's no secret that the surrounding DeKalb community around this campus has not been the safest over the last few years, and I think the university's done a great job taking steps to improve that. One of the big things that they've done over the last couple months is the hiring of Chief Mitchell as the new chief of NIU PD, and I think that with his leadership and the leadership of DeKalb PD and some of the initiatives that they've taken to make DeKalb a safer place, we'll see changes happening in the next few years coming up pretty soon. And I think that is one of the main things that we're going to see.
Thank you. How will you support underserved communities, specifically minority and LGBTQ plus communities?
Thank you. So as I had mentioned earlier, I think one of the big things that we got to do is make sure that all of our resource centers are equipped properly, make sure that they have the proper talent employed within those resource centers that can support our students that might be marginalized. The other thing we need to do is make sure that student organizations that serve those communities are appropriately funded and make sure that they have the resources that they need in order to be successful in their endeavors.
How would you reach out to the student body to understand what they would want?
So I think this relates back a little bit more to student government and creating exposure for ourselves to the student body. I think one of the main problems we have right now is the vast majority of students on this campus that are enrolled at NIU are not even aware of student government. And that itself is the main issue. As we create awareness of student government and we make people aware of our capabilities and what we're able to change, I think that within itself will allow students to come to us and let us know what changes they need to see and what they're wanting to see from their school.
It is known that students' grades and class attendance have dropped since the start of pandemic. How will you as president encourage or support students to attend class and focus on grades?
So student grades dropping and attendance dropping, obviously it's a vital issue, but the issue is far deeper than what you see on the surface level. I think besides focusing on just encouraging students to go to class, we need to focus on the reasons behind why they're not going. A lot of times it could be mental health issues, a lot of times it could be family issues, and we need to figure out what those issues are and address those issues rather than just simply putting out a plate of everybody needs to attend class, because I think everybody knows that they need to attend class, but it's not going to do much for them.
Thank you. How do you plan to remain impartial while being a part of your student organizations?
Thank you. So I think it's very important to understand that this role is set to serve the entire student body, not just yourself and the organizations that you're part of. Thankfully, I've been in that position before. As I said, I've served as the executive vice president of the largest governing body on this campus outside of SGA. And within that role, I've had to advocate for student organizations and students that are not part of my own group. And having that experience, I think I'll be able to easily replicate that within the student government.
What role do you believe Greek life should play at NIU in the future to benefit the university at large?
Thank you. I think Greek life plays a very vital role in this institution. If you look around, if you look at the data, if you look at simply just the donors to this university, alumni donors, about 70% of alumni donors to this university happen to be Greek. If you look at the buildings that have been eradicated on this campus, the vast majority of them have been donated by Greek alumni. You can look at the Barsima Center, you can look at the Jordan Center, and you can look at any other major public building that is on this campus. And because that is the case, I think it's very vital for this university to support the Greek system and make sure that not only does it survive, but it also thrives for years to come.
Given the various incidents that have made minority students feel unsafe, how will you address racism on campus?
Thank you. I think one of the main ways that we address that issue is, again, by providing some level of sustainability to the diverse classes that we bring in. We're doing a really, really good job of recruiting these minority students, but we're not providing them with the effective resources to make them feel like they belong and make them successful within their time at NIU. And again, the way we address this is by supporting the student organizations that are there for the main purpose of supporting these students.
Well, thank you so much. We're going to go ahead and close questions off at this time, just again, out of respect for Mr. Majid. We do thank you for your participation. I do want to make a quick announcement, though. So in an effort to maintain the clear impartialness and to ensure that no candidate would have even be perceived as having an advantage, the questions that were just presented to Mr. Majid had been written in secrecy by the unaffiliated members of the Board of Elections and the acting advisor of the Student Government Association. Until now, as you guys could probably see by us scrambling for questions, I just want to make that very clear that no member of the Board of Elections sharing affiliation with either candidates had seen the questions that were just asked. So again, I thank you, Mr. Majid, for coming out. I do want to say Mr. Montez did reach out earlier. He was unable to make it, but he wanted to make it known that he really did want to be here. So we thank everyone for coming out. It was a great event. It was great to see you all. Just as a reminder, voting will be, you're right, Jimmy. We have a candidate meet and greet tomorrow at noon in the Oasis Pit. We're going to have food, and it's going to be another opportunity for you guys to get a better look at all the candidates. Miss Morgan could perhaps be there, and the other presidential candidate, Montez Solis, will be there. So it'll be a really great opportunity for all of you guys and for people who did not have the chance to come today to go do that. And then we have the elections next Tuesday and Wednesday, March 29th and 30th. Voting stations will be up 9 a.m. to 6 p.m., and they will be located at Barsima Hall, DuSable Hall, the Home Student Center, Founders Memorial Library, and New Residence Hall Community Center, as well as 24 hours on Husky Link. If you guys have any questions, I'm Jacob Berg. My email is jberg1@niu.edu. I do encourage you to reach out if you have any concerns. But with that, I just want to again thank you all for coming out. Thanks to everyone online. And yeah, I guess, do you want a closing remark?
Sure, thank you.
And I closed that a little early.
Quite all right. I forgive you. On behalf of the NIU United Ticket, I would like to thank everybody for coming out for the support today. I would also like to thank the Board of Elections for putting on this interview rather than debate. And we look forward to successful election cycles. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks again. You guys have a great rest of your night.